I'm standing in front of 200 people at my retirement party when my wife Linda hands me an envelope. "Sign these," she says, loud enough for everyone to hear. I open it with shaking hands, and the words, "Petition for Dissolution of Marriage," blur in front of my eyes. Behind her, my son Marcus is grinning. My daughter Jessica actually starts clapping. 35 years of marriage, and this is how it ends? Before we continue, please drop a comment if you've ever experienced something like this. We'd love to hear your story, and subscribe to the channel to help us grow. Let me take you back to where this all started, because you need to understand how I got here. My name is Robert Chen, and I'm 58 years old. For the past 35 years, I worked as a maintenance supervisor at a manufacturing plant in Ohio. It wasn't glamorous work. I fixed machines, managed a small crew, and came home every night smelling like oil and metal. My hands were always rough. My knees hurt from climbing ladders, and my back ached from crawling into tight spaces to repair broken equipment. Linda and I met when we were 23. She was a secretary at a law firm, and I thought she was the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen. We got married 6 months later. Back then, she didn't care that I worked with my hands. She said she loved how hard I worked, how dedicated I was. Things changed after Marcus was born. Linda's friends were married to lawyers, doctors, and businessmen. They lived in big houses and took vacations to Europe. We lived in a modest 3-bedroom house and took the kids camping. Linda started making comments. Little things at first. "John's husband just made partner at his firm," or "Sarah's husband bought her a Mercedes for her birthday." I worked harder. I took every overtime shift I could get. Double shifts on weekends, holiday pay, emergency calls in the middle of the night. I wanted to give my family more. I wanted Linda to be proud of me. But the more I worked, the more she resented me. "You're never home," she'd say. Then in the same breath, "We can't afford a vacation this year." I couldn't win. Marcus and Jessica grew up hearing their mother's complaints. When Marcus was in high school, he told his friends I was a building engineer instead of saying I fixed machines. Jessica once cried because I showed up to her school event in my work clothes. I had come straight from a 12-hour shift because I didn't want to miss it. She said I embarrassed her. I kept my mouth shut and kept working. I thought if I just provided for them, they'd appreciate it someday. Here's what none of them knew. I wasn't just working overtime to pay bills. 20 years ago, my buddy Tom told me about a foreclosed house that was going for cheap. "You're good with repairs, Rob," he said. "Buy it, fix it up, rent it out." I used my overtime money as a down payment. Linda didn't notice because I'd opened a separate bank account years earlier for emergency funds. That's what I told her anyway. She never asked to see the statements. She didn't care about our finances as long as the bills got paid. I bought that first house for $40,000. It needed everything. New roof, new plumbing, electrical work. I spent 6 months working on it after my regular shifts and on weekends. I told Linda I was doing overtime at the plant. She believed me because I always came home tired and dirty. I rented that house out for $1,200 a month. After the mortgage, I cleared about $400 in profit. I saved every penny. 2 years later, I bought another foreclosed property. Then another. Then another. I became good at it. Really good. I learned which neighborhoods were about to improve. I bought houses before the area got popular, fixed them up, and either rented them or sold them for profit. I read books on real estate investing. I watched videos. I taught myself about property management, tax benefits, and market trends. By the time Marcus graduated college, I owned 17 properties. By the time Jessica got married, I owned 34. Linda and the kids had no idea. They saw a man who worked too much and came home exhausted. They didn't see the empire I was building in silence. Linda's complaints got worse over the years. "Why are we still in this old house?" she'd ask. "Margaret's husband just bought them a place with a pool. I could have bought us a mansion. I could have bought 10 mansions. But I kept quiet. Some part of me wanted to see how far their disrespect would go. And another part of me was protecting my assets. I'd heard enough divorce stories at work to know that staying silent was smart. The final straw came 3 months before my retirement party. I was having dinner with Linda, Marcus, and his wife, Brittany. Jessica and her husband, David, were there too. We were at a nice restaurant. My treat, like always. I was telling them about my retirement plans. "I'm thinking about doing some traveling," I said. "Maybe take a trip out west. I've always wanted to see Montana." Marcus laughed. "Dad, you're going to be living on a pension. You can't afford to travel." "Your father will be lucky if he can afford his medications," Linda added. "We need to be realistic about our future." Jessica nodded. "You guys should downsize. That house is too big for just the two of you. Sell it and get a condo." "Then you could help us out more," Marcus said. His wife, Brittany, squeezed his hand and smiled at me. "We're trying for another baby. Childcare is so expensive." I sat there, listening to them plan out my retirement, like I wasn't even there, like I hadn't spent 35 years breaking my back to give them everything they needed. "I'll think about it," I said quietly. Linda rolled her eyes. "You always say that. You never think about anyone but yourself. That's always been your problem, Robert. You're selfish." I paid the $400 dinner bill and drove home in silence. That night, I made a decision. I contacted my lawyer, the same one who'd been handling my real estate deals for 20 years. His name was Richard, and he was the only person who knew about my money. "Richard," I said, "I need to know something. If Linda divorces me, can she get my properties?" "Were they purchased during the marriage with marital funds?" he asked. "Purchased during the marriage, but exclusively with my overtime earnings. She never contributed $1. Everything went through my separate account. I have documentation for every property." Richard was quiet for a moment. "In Ohio, you might have a case for those being separate property, especially if you can prove they came from your sole earnings and she never contributed. But you'd need excellent documentation. I have everything. Every receipt, every bank statement, every loan document. All in my name, all funded by my overtime work." "Then you're in a strong position," Richard said. "But Robert, why are you asking me this?" "Just preparing for possibilities," I said. 2 weeks later, Linda started acting strange. She was on her phone constantly, giggling at text messages. She bought new clothes. She started going to the gym. She came home late from dinner with friends. I knew what was happening. I'd seen it before with guys at work. I didn't care. Actually, I felt relieved. It made what was coming easier. Now here we are, at my retirement party. My co-workers had rented out the VFW hall. There was a cake, a banner that said, "Happy Retirement, Robert," and a decent crowd of people I'd worked with for decades. Linda had been acting sweet all week. "I'm so proud of you, honey," she'd said that morning. 35 years at the same company. That's really something. I should have known something was wrong. The party was going well. People were sharing stories about me, laughing about the time I fixed the main production line with duct tape and a paperclip, talking about how I'd trained most of the current maintenance crew. I was actually having a good time. Then Linda stood up and clinked her glass. "Everyone, can I have your attention, please?" The room got quiet. I thought she was going to give a speech about me. Instead, she pulled out that envelope and walked over to me with this cold smile on her face. "Robert, I think it's time we were honest with each other," she said. The room was dead silent. "I've been unhappy for a very long time. You've never been the husband I needed. You work too much, you don't make enough money, and frankly, I deserve better." I heard people gasp. My friend Tom stood up like he was going to say something, but I held up my hand to stop him. Linda continued. "So I'm doing us both a favor. Sign the divorce papers, Robert. I've already talked to a lawyer. I'll take the house and half your pension. You can have your tools and your truck. It's more than fair." That's when Marcus started clapping. Then Jessica joined in. They were actually applauding their mother for humiliating me. I looked at the papers in my hand. I looked at my wife of 35 years. I looked at my children. And I smiled. "Okay, Linda," I said. "I'll sign them. But first, I think everyone here deserves to know the truth about something." I pulled out my phone and opened up my banking app. I turned the screen toward Linda, then slowly rotated so everyone in the room could see it. "This is my checking account balance," I said. "The one you don't know about." Linda squinted at the screen. Her face went white. That's not real. That can't be real." $743,000, I said loudly. "That's just my liquid cash. Want to see my investment account?" I swiped to another app. This one shows my real estate portfolio, 62 properties across 3 states. Current total value, $12.4 million. All of it purchased with my overtime earnings over the past 20 years. All of it legally separate property, because you never contributed $1 single. The room exploded. People were talking over each other. Linda grabbed my phone, staring at the screen like it was going to change. Marcus's mouth was hanging open. Jessica had gone pale. "You're lying," Linda said. "This is fake. You're trying to embarrass me." Richard stood up from where he'd been sitting in the back. I'd invited him to the party, and he'd come knowing exactly what was about to happen. "It's not fake, Mrs. Chen. I'm Robert's attorney. I've handled every one of those property transactions. It's all real, and it's all his separate property under Ohio law." Linda's hands were shaking. But we're married. Half of everything is mine." "Not when it's separate property, purchased entirely with his individual earnings," Richard said. "You're entitled to half of the marital home and half of his pension from the plant. That's what you asked for in these divorce papers. That's exactly what you'll get." I pulled a pen from my pocket. Right there, in front of everyone, I signed the divorce papers. "The house is worth about $200,000, I said. "Your half is $100,000. My pension is about $1,800 a month. Your half is $900. That's your settlement, Linda, just like you asked for." "Wait," she said. "Wait, Robert, we need to talk about this. We've been married for 35 years. Surely I deserve—" "You deserve exactly what you asked for," I said. "Nothing more, nothing less." Marcus finally found his voice. "Dad, hold on. Let's not be hasty here. You're upset, we get it, but—" "I'm not upset, son. I'm actually relieved. Your mother wants a divorce, and I'm giving her one. You seemed pretty happy about it 2 minutes ago. You were clapping, remember?" Jessica started crying. "Daddy, we didn't know. We didn't know you had money. If you'd known, you would have treated me differently," I asked. You would have respected me if I was rich, but it was okay to be ashamed of me when you thought I was just a maintenance man. Tom started clapping. Then other people joined in. My co-workers, the people who'd actually known me and worked beside me for decades, they understood what was happening. They'd seen Linda's disrespect at company events. They'd heard my kids make snide comments about my job. Linda was frantically whispering to Marcus and Jessica. I could see the panic in their eyes. They were doing math in their heads, realizing what they'd just lost. "Robert, please," Linda said. "Can we talk privately? This is between us. We don't need to do this in front of everyone." "You served me divorce papers in front of everyone," I said. "You wanted an audience for my humiliation. Now you have an audience for the truth. The papers are signed. You'll hear from my lawyer about the asset division. Enjoy your half of the house and pension." I handed the papers to Richard, grabbed my jacket, and walked out of my own retirement party. The next few weeks were chaos. Linda called me 60 times a day. I didn't answer. She showed up at the house. Well, technically still our house, begging to talk. I had already moved into one of my rental properties, a nice 3-bedroom place in a good neighborhood that I'd kept vacant for exactly this purpose. Marcus and Jessica tried too. They came to the rental house together, looking nervous. "Dad, we're sorry," Jessica said. "We were wrong. We should have respected you no matter what job you had." "But we didn't know," Marcus added quickly. "If you'd told us about the money, then you would have been nice to me," I asked. "Do you hear yourselves? You're not sorry you disrespected me. You're sorry you missed out on money." "That's not fair," Jessica said. "We're your children. You deserve what I choose to give you," I said, "which, based on how you've treated me, is nothing." Marcus's face turned red. "You're going to cut us off? Your own kids?" "You cut me off years ago," I said. "Every time you were ashamed of my job. Every time you made your mother's complaints more important than my feelings. Every time you chose to see me as an embarrassment instead of as a father who worked himself to the bone for you. I paid for your college," I continued. "Both of you. I paid for Jessica's wedding. I gave you down payment money for your houses. I helped with your cars, and the whole time you looked down on me. You thought I was beneath you." Jessica was crying again. "We'll do better. We'll change. Just give us another chance." "No," I said. "Right now, you want my money. You don't want a relationship with me. You want access to my bank account." "That's not true," Marcus said, but his eyes told a different story. "Here's what's going to happen," I said. "I'm not giving either of you a dime. Not now, not ever. If you want a relationship with me, it has to be real. It has to be because you actually value me as a person. Come back when you figure out the difference." They left angry. I didn't care. Linda tried a different approach. She hired a lawyer and contested the divorce settlement. Her lawyer argued that the properties should be considered marital assets. We went to mediation. Richard destroyed her case in about 20 minutes. He had every document, every bank statement, every property deed. He showed that every single purchase was made with my overtime earnings, deposited into my separate account, and that Linda had never contributed financially or even known about the investments. "Your client asked for the house and pension," Richard told Linda's lawyer. "That's what she's getting. If she'd wanted more, she shouldn't have served divorce papers demanding exactly that." Linda's lawyer whispered something to her. Linda started crying. "I made a mistake," she said. "Robert, please. I was angry. I wasn't thinking clearly. We can work this out." "No," I said. "We can't. You didn't make a mistake, Linda. You showed me who you really are. You've been showing me for years. I was just too tired to see it clearly." The mediation ended. The divorce would proceed as originally filed. I threw myself into my real estate business. Without the stress of my plant job and my toxic family, I actually felt 20 years younger. I started buying more properties, fixing them up myself again. I enjoyed the work. It reminded me why I'd started doing this in the first place, not for the money, but because I was good at it. One afternoon, I was replacing a water heater in one of my rentals when my phone rang. It was Jessica. "Dad, I need to talk to you," she said. Her voice sounded different, tired. "I'm listening," I said. "David lost his job. We're going to lose the house. We need help with the mortgage. Just for a few months until he finds something new." "No," I said. "Dad, please, we have 2 kids. They're your grandchildren." "I've met them twice," I said. "You kept them away from me because you were ashamed of me, remember? I showed up to Emma's birthday party in my work clothes once, and you told me not to come anymore unless I could dress appropriately." She was quiet for a long moment. "I know. I was terrible. I'm so sorry." "Are you sorry you were terrible? Or are you sorry you need money?" "Both," she said, and at least she was honest. "But Dad, I'm scared. I don't know what to do. I've never had to struggle before. You always made sure we had everything." "Then maybe it's time you learned," I said. "I grew up poor, Jessica. I know what struggle looks like. It didn't kill me. It made me who I am. Maybe it'll do the same for you." "So you're just going to let us lose our house?" "I'm going to let you figure out your own life," I said. "Get a second job. Cut your expenses. Do what millions of other people do when they face hard times. You're a smart woman. You'll survive." She hung up on me. 2 days later, Marcus called. His voice was shaking with rage. "You're really going to do this?" he said. "Jessica's about to lose everything, and you're sitting on millions doing nothing." "I'm doing exactly what you wanted," I said. "You wanted me out of your life. You clapped when your mother served me divorce papers. You got your wish. We're your children." "Then act like it," I said, and hung up. That night, I sat in my rental house drinking coffee and thinking about my life. I wasn't happy, exactly, but I was at peace. For the first time in decades, I wasn't being disrespected in my own home. I wasn't listening to complaints about what I couldn't provide. I wasn't being treated like a failure. My phone buzzed with a text message. It was from a number I didn't recognize. "Mr. Chen, this is Brittany, Marcus's wife. Can we meet? I need to talk to you. Alone. Please." I stared at the message for a long time, then typed back. "Tomorrow, 2 p.m. Angelo's coffee shop on 5th Street. I had no idea what Marcus's wife wanted, but something told me I was about to find out just how desperate my family had become. Brittany was already sitting at a corner table when I arrived at Angelo's. She looked nervous, her hands wrapped around a coffee cup she wasn't drinking. I sat down across from her and waited. "Thank you for meeting me," she said. "I wasn't sure you'd come." "What do you want, Brittany?" She took a deep breath. "I want to apologize. For myself, and honestly, for Marcus too, even though he doesn't know I'm here." "I'm listening." "I didn't grow up with money," she said. "My parents were teachers. We were comfortable, but we worked for everything we had. When I married Marcus, I was shocked by how he talked about you, how they all talked about you. Like you were some kind of failure because you worked with your hands." She looked down at her coffee. "I tried to say something a few times. I told Marcus he should be grateful for everything you did. But he'd just say I didn't understand. that I didn't know what it was like growing up watching his mom's friends live better than we did. "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked. "Because I've watched what's happened since the retirement party. Marcus is obsessed with your money. He talks about it constantly. How unfair it is that you won't share with your own son. How you owe him because he's your child. He's not sleeping. He's barely eating. He's so angry all the time." She paused, and I realized something. He's not angry because he lost a relationship with you. He's angry because he lost access to money he thought he was entitled to, and that's not the man I married. Or maybe it is, and I just didn't want to see it. "What do you want me to do about it?" I asked. "Nothing," she said. "I'm not here to ask for money or beg you to forgive him. I'm here to tell you that you're right. They treated you terribly, and they deserve what they're getting. I just wanted you to know that not everyone in your family thought you were a failure. I never did." I studied her face. She meant it. "Thank you, Brittany. That actually means something." She stood to leave, then hesitated. "One more thing. Linda's boyfriend left her. The guy she was seeing, the reason she wanted the divorce. He found out she only got the house and pension. He's gone." "Good," I said. Brittany gave me a sad smile and left. Over the next 3 months, I watched from a distance as my family fell apart. Jessica and David did lose their house. They moved into a small apartment. Jessica got a job as a receptionist at a dental office. David found work as a sales associate at a hardware store. They struggled. Marcus and Brittany had to pull their kids out of private school. Brittany went back to work as a nurse. Marcus started driving for a ride-share service on weekends to make extra money. They struggled too. Linda sold the house and moved into a condo. With her half of the sale and the pension, she was fine financially. But she was alone. Her boyfriend was gone. Her friends had distanced themselves after the retirement party scandal became gossip around town. She called me sometimes late at night. I never answered. I kept working on my properties. I bought 3 more houses. I hired a property management company to handle the day-to-day rentals, but I still did a lot of the repair work myself. I liked it. It kept me busy. One Saturday morning, I was repainting a rental property when someone knocked on the door. I opened it to find Jessica standing there in jeans and a t-shirt. She looked exhausted. "Hi, Dad," she said. "Jessica, can I come in?" I stepped aside and let her in. She looked around at the half-painted living room, the drop cloths, the paint supplies. "You're doing this yourself?" she asked. "I always have." She nodded slowly. "I never knew that. I never knew you did any of this." "You never asked." We stood there in awkward silence. Finally, she spoke again. "I got a promotion at work. I'm the office manager now. It's not much more money, but it's something. David's doing well at the hardware store. His manager said he might make assistant manager soon." "That's good," I said. "It's hard, Dad. Really hard. Some days I don't know how we're going to make it. The apartment is small. The kids share a bedroom. We can't afford the things we used to do. No vacations, no eating out, no new clothes unless we really need them." "Welcome to how most people live," I said. "I know," she said quietly. "I get it now. What you did for us. How hard you worked. I never appreciated it before because it was just always there. You always made sure we had what we needed. I took it for granted." I kept painting. She watched me for a minute, then picked up a paint roller. "Can I help?" she asked. "You'll get paint on your clothes." "I don't care." We painted together in silence for an hour. It was the most honest time we'd spent together in years. When we finished the wall, Jessica cleaned her roller and turned to me. I'm not here to ask for money, Dad. I just wanted you to know that I understand now what you were trying to teach me about hard work and respect and not taking things for granted. I'm sorry it took losing everything for me to learn it. Are you really learning it? I asked. Or are you just saying what you think I want to hear? I'm learning it, she said. Every day when I wake up at 6 to get the kids ready for their new school. Every day when I work an 8-hour shift and come home to cook dinner and help with homework and clean the apartment. Every day when I look at our bank account and have to make choices about what we can and can't afford. I think about you doing all of this while we complained that it wasn't enough. I'm ashamed of who I was, Dad. I saw tears in her eyes. Real tears, not manipulative ones. Keep working hard, I said. Keep learning. Keep being a good mother. That's what matters. She nodded and left. 2 weeks later, Marcus showed up. He looked different too. Thinner. Tired. Humbled. I'm not Jessica, he said immediately. I'm not going to tell you I've learned my lesson and I'm a changed man. I'm still angry. I still think you could help us, and you're choosing not to. But Brittany told me what she said to you, and she's right. I've been obsessed with your money, and it's eating me alive. So why are you here? I asked. Because I need to say something, even if I don't totally mean it yet. You didn't owe me anything. You gave me everything I needed growing up. College, a car, a down payment on a house. You were a good father, and I treated you like garbage. I'm sorry. You don't sound sorry, I said. I'm working on it, he said honestly. But I'm here, aren't I? I'm trying. That's more than I was doing 3 months ago. I almost smiled. Yeah, it is. Brittany says I need to stop thinking about what I lost and start appreciating what I have. She's a good woman, better than I deserve. She is, I agreed. Marcus left, but he came back the next month, and the month after that. Each time, we talked a little more. He told me about driving for the rideshare service, about the weird passengers he met, about how humbling it was to work a second job. He was changing, slowly, but he was changing. 6 months after the retirement party, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. It was Emma, Jessica's daughter, my granddaughter. Grandpa, Mom gave me your number. She said I could call you. Hi, Emma. How are you? I'm okay. I miss our old house, but the apartment is okay. I have a new friend in my building. Her name is Sophia. We talked for 20 minutes, about school, about her new friends, about a book she was reading. It was the longest conversation I'd ever had with her. Grandpa, she said before we hung up, Mom told me you fix houses. Can you teach me sometime? I think that sounds cool. Yeah, I said, my voice catching. Yeah, I'd like that. A year after the divorce, Jessica and David had saved enough to buy a small house. Nothing fancy, but it was theirs. They invited me to a housewarming party. It was just family. Jessica, David, the kids, Marcus, Brittany, and their children. Linda wasn't invited. Jessica pulled me aside during the party. Dad, I want to show you something. She handed me a savings account statement. We saved $15,000. We're building an emergency fund. David and I are taking a financial planning class at the community college. I'm proud of you, I said, and I meant it. Marcus overheard us. I'm at 12,000, he said, a hint of competition in his voice. Brittany and I are trying to save for a down payment on a house. Keep going, I said. Both of you. That night, as I was leaving, both of my children hugged me. Real hugs, not obligatory ones.
"Thank you, Dad," Jessica whispered, "for not giving up on us, for teaching us what we needed to learn."
I drove home thinking about the past year. My family had lost their houses, their comfortable lifestyle, their easy money. But they'd gained something more valuable. They'd learned to work. They'd learned to appreciate what they had. They'd learned that respect wasn't about money or status, but about character and effort. I still had my millions. I still had my properties. But now I also had something I'd been missing for years. Genuine relationships with my children. They called me regularly now, not to ask for money, but to share their lives, to ask for advice, to invite me to their kids' school events. As for Linda, I heard through Jessica that she'd tried to date a few times, but kept meeting men who lost interest when they learned about her financial situation. She'd reached out to Jessica and Marcus, trying to rebuild relationships with them, but they kept her at arm's length. They'd seen what she was capable of, and they didn't trust her anymore. One evening, I was having dinner at Marcus and Brittany's apartment when Marcus asked, "Dad, do you ever regret it, not helping us when we were struggling?" I thought about it. No, because if I had helped, you'd still be the same people you were before. You needed to struggle. You needed to learn what real work feels like, what sacrifice means. That's a gift, even if it didn't feel like it at the time. "Some gift," Marcus said, but he was smiling. 2 years after the retirement party, I did something I'd been thinking about. I set up trust funds for my grandchildren's education. Not huge amounts, but enough to help with college when the time came. I told Jessica and Marcus about it. "There are conditions," I said. "They have to maintain good grades. They have to work part-time jobs in high school. They have to learn the value of money before they get access to it. And you two can't touch it. It's for them, not you."
"We understand," Jessica said. "Thank you, Dad."
"I'm not doing it for you," I said. "I'm doing it for them, because they're not responsible for their parents' mistakes. I still work on my properties. I still fix water heaters and paint walls and replace broken toilets. I'm 60 years old now, wealthy beyond anything I imagined when I started, but I still get my hands dirty, because that's who I am. That's who I've always been. My children finally understand that. They finally see that a man's worth isn't measured by his job title or his bank account, but by his character, his work ethic, and his integrity. It took them losing everything to learn it, but they learned it. And me? I learned that sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone you love is let them fall, let them struggle, let them discover their own strength. My wife served me divorce papers at my retirement party while my kids clapped. It was the worst day of my life. But it was also the day everything changed. The day I stopped letting them disrespect me. The day I chose myself. Now they beg to spend time with me, not for my money, but because they finally understand what they almost lost. A father who loved them enough to work himself to exhaustion. A father who loved them enough to let them fail. A father who was there all along, building an empire in silence, waiting for them to see him for who he really was. Thanks for listening to this story. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and hit the bell icon for more stories like this. Where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments.